Good morning, everyone. My goodness, are we blessed with music? Wow. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo on this gorgeous morning, this gorgeous wintry day. I want to welcome each and every one of you. It is good to be together in worship. My name is Joan Montagnes, and I have the honor and the privilege of serving you, this congregation, as minister. Good morning to you all as we explore what it means to be a people of beloved community. We are in a Zoom webinar worship service this morning, which means we can't hear or see you. You can't hear or see each other, so I hope you're being as comfortable as possible. You can hear and see our worship associate, that's Charlene Montgomery over there, and you can see me as well. You can also chat with each other all the way through the service. And in an exciting new development, we now offer closed captioning. If you just look along your toolbar, you'll see a CC button. And if they help you participate in the service, we are glad. And if they find them distraction, you can also turn them off. I want to offer a big shout out to Josh Disick, John Petroselli, Justin DeClean, Karen Streech, Bobby Withrow, Paul Zanoli, and all our music staff who help create our worship experiences every single week. So grateful to them. I have a couple of announcements from our Justice Ministry. First of all, this month we're collecting personal hygiene products and cleaning supplies for the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers. You can drop off your donations this afternoon and next Sunday between 1 and 2 p.m. at the garden entrance. We are collecting, in particular, toothpaste, toothbrushes, soap, deodorant, disinfectant, wipes, hand sanitizers, feminine hygiene products, and the like. I also want to make the announcement for the Justice Ministry team that at the same time as they're doing those collections, they will be offering you an opportunity to write postcards to Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz, urging him to prioritize incarcerated people in the COVID-19 vaccination plan. In other words, get folks who are incarcerated that vaccine early because they are so vulnerable. Another announcement for you all, exciting news, the midwinter edition of the Fun and Fellowship Rolling Auction Catalog is officially out. And there are tons of goodies inside just waiting to be bid upon. So if you haven't received that 2021 Midwinter Fun and Fellowship Auction Catalog, please contact Maria Testa. And if you don't know how to get in touch with her, get in touch with me and I will hook you up. Bid early and bid often. It's all for a good cause. And it's not too late to be a donor. Donors play an essential role in our success. We wouldn't have an auction without you. We're looking for lots of fabulous ideas, services, walks, whatever, for our early spring catalog. And we'd love to include your donation in that catalog. So there's that. And then here's my last announcement. I promise it is the last announcement I offer at every worship service, which is after this worship service where you can't hear and see each other, we have a Zoom fellowship time where you can hear and see each other. But it means you have to check out of this meeting and go into another one just because of technology, right? And the address for that Zoom meeting is in the newsletter, the e-blast, in the chat, and on the last page of this worship service. Oh, that's enough announcing. Come, let us worship.
The Reverend Mark Morrison Reed reminds us, the central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. In this spirit, let us worship together.
We begin our worship services by lighting a chalice, a symbol of our Unitarian heritage, presence, and hope. Let's join in our chalice lighting affirmation. We gather in loving community, inspiring one another to transform ourselves, to create a more just and compassionate world. And now let's join in singing Building Bridges. Once upon a time, there was a town, and on either end of that town, there was a church. One was the church on the square, and the other was the church on the round. All the people who went to the church on the square were turnip farmers. They liked turnips, and they knew turnips were full of lots of vitamins and minerals to make a person healthy and strong. So every year on February 21st, they held the great turnip potluck. It was a wondrous event. People brought turnip stew, turnip salad, turnip dip, turnip chili, roast turnip, turnip pizza, turnip souffle, turnip on weck, buffalo hot turnip, turnip under glass, turnip quiche, turnip cookies, turnip cake, and turnip ice cream with turnip sauce. And to wash it all down, what else but turnip juice? Everyone agreed that everything was delicious, but it all tasted strangely the same. Well, this year, the minister of the church on the square said from the pulpit, "Dearly beloveds, it is time to get ready, time to prepare for the 2021 great turnip potluck, and everybody needs to pitch in to make this the best great turnip potluck ever. And just as everyone was dreaming up new and exciting turnip recipes, a voice shouted from the back of the church, "Hey, how about this year we invite the people from the church in the round to our potluck?" The congregation gasped. They never did anything with the church on the round. Nobody had ever suggested such a thing before. The people mumbled amongst themselves, mumble, 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 and finally decided that a carefully worded invitation could go out to the church on the round, explaining the nature of the great turnip potluck and expectations around the turnip centric culture. Well, the next day, the invitations arrived. One by one, the families from the church on the round read their invitations. Each family gasped. They never did anything with the church on the square. No one ever had suggested such a thing before. And nobody from the church in the round had any turnips. But they did like potlucks. Thought Mr. Pursa. I haven't any turnips, but I have a little tofu and some green beans. I suppose I could bring a stir fry. Golly, thought Dr. Salazar, I haven't any turnips, but I do have tomatoes and noodles. I suppose I could bring a big pot of spaghetti. Oh my, thought Ms. Chow, I haven't any turnips, but I do have some flour and sugar. I suppose I could bring some cupcakes. Everybody from the church and the round wanted to go to the potluck. So they all went to their cupboards, refrigerators, and pantries. They found no turnips there, but they found all kinds of other yummy things. Now, if you were invited to a potluck, but you didn't have any turnips, what would you bring? You can put your ideas in the chat. I'm not sure, but I would hazard a guess that Eileen might bring chocolate chip cookies. Ashley might bring vegan chicken cordon bleu. Dave might bring homemade smoked salmon. Tom and Julie might bring honey for the tea. Rosemary might bring wonton dumplings. Nicole might bring bean and corn salad. And Liz might bring lemon curd and scones. Well, the people from the church on the round traveled all the way across town, carrying their different dishes into the church on the square for the great turnip potluck. But they were a bit anxious because they weren't bringing any turnips. And I see people are bringing veggie trays and cake and ice cream and chocolate. What else are folks bringing here? No turnips, though. All kinds of things. You look through the chat, you'll see things. The people of the church and the square were also anxious. They had never done anything with strangers before, and they wanted to be good and welcoming hosts. They also loved the great turnip potluck just as it was, and they were afraid that newcomers would bring changes. At first, as people from both churches began to arrive in the parish hall, and they began to lay all their potluck dishes on the long tables, it was a bit awkward. For some, it was strange to see so many turnip dishes. For others, it was strange to see dishes with no turnip at all. But everyone politely began to fill up their plates. They all tried a bit of everything. They mixed and mingled with each other, and after a while, they began making new friends, laughing together and exchanging recipes. They learned about each other's churches, lives, and families. And when it was all over and the dishes were washed and the parish hall was all clean, the people of the church in the square declared that without question it had been the best great turnip potluck ever. Maybe next year they'd invite the whole town.
Every week, we take a good portion of our Sunday morning offering and give it away to a social justice cause outside our church walls. This month, we are supporting the good work of the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers. The Federation of Neighborhood Centers provides comprehensive family-focused services for adults and youth living in low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods throughout Buffalo, Niagara Falls, and Lockport. Their doors are open to all people and communities, helping our neighbors navigate a path from where they are to where they want to be. This is a particularly exciting partnership for our congregation because in 1894, our church established Neighborhood House, one of the first 2 neighborhood centers in the network. You can use PayPal by going to our website, www.buffalouu.org, and clicking on the blue Donate button. Or you can send a check by mail to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo, 695 Elmwood Ave, Buffalo, New York, 14222. You can also arrange a regular automatic deposit with your bank. If yours is a gift to our Share the Plate ministry, please write Share on the memo line, and it will be shared between the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers and the church operating budget. If yours is a welcome gift to our congregation, please write Pledge 2021 on the memo line. Either way, please write UUCB on the important line, and we will do the bookkeeping. Let's be generous so our community can truly become a beloved community. This morning's reading is from Jayber Crow by Wendell Berry. My vision of the gathered church that had come to me had been replaced by a vision of the gathered community. What I saw now was the community imperfect and irresolute, but held together by the frayed and always fraying, incomplete and yet ever holding bonds of the various sorts of affection. There had maybe never been anybody who had not been loved by somebody, who had been loved by somebody else, and so on and on. It was a community always disappointed in itself, disappointing its members, always trying to contain its divisions and gentle its meanness, always failing and yet always preserving a sort of will toward goodwill. My vision gathered the community as it never has been and never will be gathered in this world of time, for the community must always be marred by members who are indifferent to it or against it, who are nonetheless its members, and maybe nonetheless essential to it. And yet I saw them all as somehow perfected beyond time by one another's love, compassion, and forgiveness. As it is said, we may be perfected by grace.
I am hoping that we can join in a potluck soon. Oh my gosh, you've got my tummy rumblings and my spiritual heart a fluttering with all of your potluck gifts this morning. Let's join our hearts and minds in a quiet moment of prayer, reflection, and meditation. Let's build our church on a foundation of love and covenant with one another, to celebrate the joys of our discovery, embracing the fullest measure of our humanity, to communicate with kindness and respect, supporting each other in our struggles, to serve with compassion and commitment, to openly share our laughter and tears, showing reverence for the divine in all. Let us covenant with one another to explore our values, striving to be respectful, listening to how others experience the world, honoring authentic feelings of all things, including hurt and anger, recognizing our diversity as our communal strength. Let us covenant with one another to accept responsibility for our individual actions while we promote justice and peace. This is important, challenging ministry. It takes time and effort to do it well, and it is who we are called to be as a people of beloved community. Today, we specially hold in our hearts Sandy Bizant and her family. Sandy's husband and beloved longtime member of our congregation, Doug Bizant, passed away this week. He will be sorely missed. And now let us open this worship space to the names of all our loved ones, suffering in sorrow and celebrating in joy, each name a breath, each breath a prayer.
Lord, dear Lord of all,
The breath of nature is upon us. The spirit of life is within us. The community of love is among us. So be it. Blessed be. And let the church say, Amen. Some years ago, I was invited to give a sermon at a conference for about 500 of my colleagues. Take a minute with that. A sermon for 500 ministers. Oh my God, intimidating and terrifying. And yet it was an honor to be asked, and so I agreed to take on the task. Terrifying as it was, this was a huge opportunity. This was my chance to say something important. I wanted to offer something challenging and inspiring, comforting and spiritual, intellectually stimulating and amusing, all in 12 minutes. So I did my research, asked fellow ministers about topics that would interest them, pulled from my best stuff, drew on some old chestnuts, sent drafts out to friends for feedback, especially paying attention to non-inclusive and oppressive language that could be cut from the final manuscript. I wrote and rewrote and practiced. All the bases were covered. It was a great sermon that spoke to our times and to the hearts of my professional community. Finally, the day arrived. With my heart in my throat, I began to preach. I couldn't have felt more vulnerable. If I'd been naked, in a blizzard, on TV, in a Super Bowl halftime show, I couldn't have felt more vulnerable. Did I mention I was terrified? Yeah. Regardless, I plowed through my terror. I threw my whole self into the delivery because I believed every word and I loved the congregation. When I was done, I collected my papers. We sang the hymn. Worship leaders processed from the hall. So happy it was over. Yay. And moments later, during the hubbub of coffee hour, an official brought me a message. My sermon had harmed members of the trans and non-binary community, people of color, and people with disabilities. Not only had I harmed people, there would be a public response to my sermon. I wanted to die. But I didn't die. I also didn't run screaming to my hotel room to hide under the mattress, which is what I wanted to do, or catch the next flight home, or resign from the church, or leave Unitarian Universalism forever, though all of those options crossed my mind in rapid succession. Instead, I had me a little private cry and went through all the emotions that you might expect. Another thing I didn't do is get angry and defensive. You see, long ago, I made a promise to be part of a beloved community of faith, the gathered church. I agreed to a covenant of relationship, and with my sermon, I unintentionally had broken my vows. So I prayed a lot, leaned on my closest friends for support, listened to my mentors, gathered my courage, and made every effort to heal the brokenness. There were a lot of people who wanted to talk to me at that conference. For all the wrong reasons, I'd become a bit of a celebrity. Some folks were as confused as I was. Some folks loved the sermon. Some people wouldn't meet my eye and avoided me in the halls. If anyone asked, my response was the same. I told everyone, I am sorry I caused harm. Very sorry. And I am so deeply grateful to the people who let me know that I had failed. I am learning about my mistakes and how to do better in the future. Now, that sermon was a long time ago, and I did learn a lot from my mistakes. I studied, prayed, spoke with people, attended workshops, and got a coach to help me understand the beloved community in new ways. And as I learned, I grew. I grew deeper, wider, and stronger in spirit. Now, I'm not alone in this journey. I'm just telling you one story from my life, but nobody exists in isolation. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength is too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. Our shared story is about continually learning how love works in our lives and in our world. A story about a wonderful community. That's us, a wonderful community. And if we are honest, a story about a community always disappointed in itself, disappointing its members, always trying to contain its divisions and gentle its meanness, always failing, yet always preserving a sort of will toward goodwill. We try so hard. We have good intentions. Often we succeed and sometimes we fail. Sometimes we fail epically in front of everybody. Faith is about learning, continuing, and growing deeper, wider, and stronger in loving spirit because of our failures. Our prayer this morning emerged out of our Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo draft relational covenant, a covenant that asks us as a beloved community of faith, the gathered church, to honor authentic feelings, including hurt and anger, to learn about how others experience the world, and to recognize that our diversity is our communal strength. We have an opportunity. We have an opportunity as a congregation to listen with a holy curiosity to the experience of others. Not just the voices we hear every day, but also the voices of people within and without our community who have been silenced over centuries of oppression. Maybe the most important voices we need to listen to are the voices of those pushed to the sidelines by history's dominant white heterosexist ableist culture. On our journey, we may share and hear stories full of hurt and anger. For even a community striving to be inclusive can harm its beloved members. We can always learn more and more about how love works in our lives and in the world. We can always learn more how our diversity is our communal strength. This is a challenging ministry. It requires change, and change is hard. It requires vulnerability, but not vulnerability arising out of weakness, vulnerability arising from soulful courage. We have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to covenant with one another in a gathered church, a church that doesn't get all defensive, that doesn't cling to a single historical narrative, that doesn't make shutdown statements. We have an opportunity to remove the barriers to our spiritual home. We have an opportunity to be enriched by each other and all our neighbors. We have an opportunity to covenant with one another in diverse, beloved community, creating a safe, bold, transformational space in which peace and justice can thrive. Our community can become deeper and wider and stronger in loving spirit. I invite you, I implore you to join the conversation. What would such a gathered community look like? What would it be like? What promises would we make to one another? How would we hold ourselves and each other accountable? In March, we will be holding 3 restorative practice circles to discuss our relational covenant, the draft. Please be part of the process. Tell your story. Listen to each other. And in the conversation, bring our covenant to life. Our community is and always be imperfect and irresolute and held together by the frayed and always fraying, incomplete yet ever holding bonds of affection. Let's not underestimate the power of that affection to help us be authentic with one another as we discover our communal strength. Let's join in singing, How Could Anyone?
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Please join us in the words for extinguishing the flame of our chalice. As we extinguish the flame of this chalice, may we carry its light with us into the world in the power of peace, faith, justice, and love.
None alone can save the world. Together, well, That's another possibility. Remember, you are blessed. Remember, you are a blessing. And above all else, remember, you are not alone. You are never alone. So be it. Blessed be. And let the church say, Amen.